So the next discussion will be Let's Get Intelligent Everywhere with James Kotecki. Let's go. And Alessio Iuvara. What's really interesting about this, it's actually going to be a live podcast recording. So this is, it's going to be online, isn't it? I mean...
That's right, Gabriel. It's going to be online.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
I'll let you guys take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks all for being here. This is so exciting. This is my guest, Alessio Iuvara. And
to meet you.
Before we get started with the interview, I'm just going to give a few remarks, and then I'm going to go into podcast interviewer mode, and it'll be pretty clear when that happens. So this is a new podcast that is for a company called AgriPoint that does ag tech and nature AI. But it's really a show about AI for grand challenges in the physical world. So we cover all sorts of topics, robotics, drones, and today we're talking about AI for the acceleration of nuclear power deployment, which ties in perfectly to the last session. Super excited about that. So a couple of notes about this. Because I've never had an audience before for this show, I've only recorded a couple of episodes so far, it'd be cool if we could start with you guys applauding. And so I know that's asking a lot at the beginning of the show, but I think it would be really cool for the audio and the sound effects to make it seem like there's a crowd here. Some of you will be in the shot as well. We may take a couple questions from the audience as well, because why not? Now we have an audience, we can do this. Would also super appreciate it if you liked and subscribed and watched the content. You can find it on YouTube. The show is called Intelligent Everywhere, or the YouTube @ Intelligence Everywhere. And I think those are all the notes that I have for the show. Let me see. Yeah, new podcast, subscribe. Also the thing I'm doing is recruiting guests. So if you are doing something cool in AI that has to do with the physical world and you're solving a big problem, think of it as like AI for the kind of stuff that you'd actually hope AI would be used for instead of just like, funnier, more realistic cat videos. AI for the big problems that you hope AI would solve. That's what the show's about. So if you're working on anything related to that, or if you know someone who is, please come find me later, and maybe we'll get you on the show as well. So I think we're going to switch, actually. Okay. I'll sit here. All right. Everybody ready? All right. Are we all loosened up? Excited to start? Hi. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So unexpected. I really appreciate that. Thank you. From AgriPoint, I'm James Kotecki, and this is Intelligent Everywhere, recording on location from the Eternal City in Rome. Let me say that again. I'm used to actually being able to take these over again, so let's start that again. I'm going to do the whole thing again. All right, so please applaud again. Hey, all right, even bigger than before. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. From AgriPoint, this is Intelligent Everywhere. I'm James Kotecki, recording on location at Techtalia 2025 in the Eternal City of Rome. And my guest today is Alessio Iuvara, the founder and CEO of Kalis, which is a company that is using AI to deploy nuclear power faster and cheaper. Thank you so much for being here, Alessio. Welcome to Intelligent Everywhere. Welcome to Techtalia.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Okay, so Kalis, I looked it up, and this is a Rome question, actually. We're going to start with a relevant Roman question. Kalis was the ancient Roman god of the heavens. Why is Kalis also the name of your company?
Actually, the name of the company has nothing to do with the Roman god, because it is an acronym. It stands for Computer-Aided Engineering and Licensing Unified Systems. But there is a quick story from a Wisconsin Madison night with my co-founder when we was like, let's find a cool name. Yeah. Yes, we have the acronym. It's also the name of the Roman god. Good to go.
Perfect. Okay, so computer-aided engineering, licensing.
Unified system.
Okay, so what I understand is you're using AI to make the process of getting through all the paperwork that it takes to deploy nuclear power, you're making that process faster. Is that fair to say?
Not only, but yes.
Okay. So first of all, before we get into that, I want to give people a sense of how challenging it is to deploy nuclear power today. And I know we're probably talking about different regions, different parts of the world here, it may be different, but just give me a sense of if someone is doing this without your help, how challenging is it to get new nuclear power out there?
Very quickly, I will give you just a couple of data. NuScale Power, the only licensed small modular reactor today, have had a licensing process lasting more than 10 years. It cost $500 million and brought to the construction of a document that was 2 million pages long. You have to do this not only for one power station, but upon 60-70% for every power station that you built. So if we say that small modular reactors solve the technical economic problem related to nuclear, they don't solve licensing, because the licensing does not scale with the how much the reactor is large, actually.
10 years, 2 million pages long.
Yes.
And was that dollar quote that you gave, was that for the entire reactor, or was that just for the regulatory piece?
No, just for the paperwork, my friend.
The paperwork was $500 million.
My friend, just the
itself.
paperwork.
Okay.
This is nuclear.
Okay, so this is a great place for AI to come in and start doing some work. So, I mean, tell me about how your platform works. And I don't know if it even makes sense to think about this, but all of us are familiar with ChatGPT. So an engineer sits down in front of a screen and is like, let me start writing some paperwork to license nuclear power. What do they see? How does it work?
Absolutely. So they have two phases of the interface. One is more like a ChatGPT, so let's say swarm of LLMs that can answer regulatory questions, but also make robotic process automation of the creation of the document itself. On the other, there is a documental automation platform. So at the end, what the engineer do? He goes there, sits, puts the problem behind, I don't know, the licensing of a valve, of a subsystem of the reactor. The system answer, he check the answer and put the tick, because all must be traceable in a nuclear kind of power project. And then this thing is used for the context engineering of the final document to be built. So it's all automated.
So it sounds like, to answer probably people's obvious question, there's still a lot of human aspects built into the process. There's an engineer checking it at all these steps, because this is probably the last place that you would want to have any kind of hallucination in the document.
Absolutely, yes, and I can add one thing on that. The nuclear regulatory body, that is actually the body that will license the reactor at the end, won't accept something that is full automated. They need to see that there been people that actually checked what is put out. And this is not only for licensing documentation, but also when you have a semi-automatic control system for the power plant. So it's something that is normal in nuclear. Just one thing on that, if I can add. One of the IP that the company have is a complete translation in formal language. What does that mean? That we are actually solving the Babylon related to legal type of approach of the nuclear, of licensing, etc. And that means that we are actually avoiding more than 90% of the possible hallucination coming from an endeavor like that. Then you have the human in the loop, so you go down the 1%.
So tell me about the scope of your work. Are we talking entirely in Europe here? Because I believe your company is based here in Rome. Oh. Tell me about the scope and the places that you're actually able to do this.
Absolutely. The idea is to make design, license, build, repeat of nuclear power plants worldwide. We started here in Europe, but with the regulatory framework of US, Canada, and UK. Why? Let's say that here in Italy we do not have a nuclear power plant born from Italy, let's say. Most of the technology that we can use now are from the US, France, or even Russia and other places. But, we are in the NATO bloc, so I mean, the choice narrows. And the idea is to get, as we were saying, this nuclear power plant not only licensed, but also designed, built, and sited, let's say, in a faster way. Thanks to the benchmark that we have done, based on the NuScale reactor, we are able to cut down the times and the costs from 2 to 3/5 of the whole process. That means that just on licensing is a 200 million to 300 million saving on the whole process. Why? Yeah. Just quickly. Because more than 80% of this cost comes from nuclear engineers, chemical engineers, whatever, used to write paper. Makes no sense. These people are very rare and cost a lot. So it makes more sense to use them to build and design the reactor.
High-value people putting their time into paperwork when they could be using it to actually build the thing. So if you're cutting down on costs, how much would it actually cut down on time? I mean, let me ask you a blunt question, because I don't even know if the company's been around for 10 years, but if it usually takes 10 years to license one of these things, then do you even have an answer yet about how much faster you can make this go?
Absolutely, yes, because as I was saying before, we have made this benchmark comparing with the licensing of the NuScale reactor. And we have been able to cut down the whole process in 2 years. Actually, the company was born 2.5 years ago.
Okay. So you go from 10 to 2 years? Or you're
Let's
taking
say
2
this
years
is,
off?
No, from, let's say, from the licensing part, so design licensing part, that is 5 years, not 10, because then there is the permitting. On these 5 years, we
okay.
cut down to 2.
Okay. So that's
And this is proven.
very significant.
Absolutely. I mean, more than this. In this way, you can make micro and small modular reactor with reasonable times and cost. Otherwise, we are just taking the worst of large-scale power station without the economics of scale. Without that, you cannot do it.
So you're starting to prove out that adding AI into this process can be valuable, but I imagine there's a lot more that you could do as you think about how AI is going to continue to improve and how people will be able to use AI, even if it doesn't improve, just as a process improvement piece. How much better do you think you can get even from where you are now? What's on your horizon? What's your dream?
I will give you a snippet, let's say, of what we are doing now. We are on the late stages of application of AI, not only for the documental automation, but also for the direction of the nuclear design itself. That means that we can make what we call compliance by design of the reactor. That it means starting from the regulatory, and this is something that is not done now, starting from the regulatory, having AI helping in driving all the nuclear calculation codes with the human that sees, and in this way make a continuous loop that close the solution space. Making that, you close a nuclear design that can last even more than 10 years for large reactors in a fraction of that. And we are applying this thing not only to the new scale, but for also economical players that are moving now in the field.
And are you also now or potentially in the future going to sell similar technology to the regulators on the other side who have to actually read these documents and figure this out? And so there's going to be AI on both sides of the equation, I imagine.
Absolutely, yes. And I add one thing on this. Actually, one of the most good partnerships that we have are with 2 nuclear regulatory bodies here in Europe. And we aim to expand this thing on the world regulatory bodies of Europe, because in nuclear you need something that is called verification, validation, and quality certification. And that, especially in regulatory regimes, must be done together with the regulators. And when the regulators use your system and you are able also to help on the other part without having conflict of interest because you do not build reactors, actually you are changing the paradigm. We are shifting the paradigm in which both regulatory, construction, and design of nuclear is done.
We have time, I think, for a question or two from the audience. If anyone has questions about AI and its role in speeding the development of nuclear power, now's your chance. If you don't have questions, I'll cut this part out of the video to make it less awkward. Oh, we do have a question in the back. Can you come up here a little bit so I can give you the mic? Oh, we have a mic. Okay, great.
So I actually asked why nuclear development is quite, why it's taking so much time. And according to Perplexity, there are a lot of inefficiencies in the process of developing nuclear plants. Could you just enlighten us on these processes and what exactly is currently inefficient? Why we're not building them faster? We've solved the political piece, but the actual piece of building should now be faster. So can you address that? Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Let's make the hypothesis that in this answer we are not taking into account the public acceptance, because I cannot go in the minds of people and make them accept nuclear. But this is another story. So if we take this from granted, the inefficiency comes from not only the licensing process, that is the one that we've seen, but also on the construction process, especially related to quality for big reactors. I will give you a couple of data. In the Hinkley Point C, that is one of the EPR, the European Pressurized Reactor that was built, actually is being built, in the UK, there was a production of something like 500 engineering change requests per day. What they are? That means that when you're building something, not always the things follow the specifics, and so you have to signal them. Okay, when you have one of them, actually you have to make reparation work. Some of the documents that come, and also the process that come from this type of endeavor, can get wrong, and the data is about 11-12% of that. For every one of these NCR that you do wrong, you block a squad of almost 60 people, 60 for 1 week. Just scale it for a huge-scale reactor, and you get an idea on how much this thing can alter the possibility to have a speed process, but also increase the cost. Then there is all the regulatory part related to construction. There is also the redesign that you must do in order to be fitting with the regulatory of every country, and even on the environmental side from every place in the country itself. I mean, is a behemoth in terms of regulatory. And this is one side. The other are, as I was saying, quality. The last part is, getting a resilient and qualified supply chain. And this is also another part where we are working. These are the three monsters of nuclear, as we can say.
I think we have one more question from the audience, and then we'll probably wrap up. Oh, you got it, great.
Amazing, thank you. Wonderful panel and such a good idea about a podcast and connecting everyone together online, and huge congrats for doing it in front of all of us. I have a question. I'm going to be soon doing a panel as well about design, AI and design. So I'm going to be speaking about aerospace, which is the sector that I'm building and growing in. But I've written a question for you, which I think it could be relevant in this as well. So as AI systems take more on decision-making and nuclear monitoring and safety, pretty much similar to what we have in aerospace, where should we draw the line between human oversight and the machine autonomy?
Oh, you made a very good question. So actually, let's make a step back. In nuclear, you have different categories of not only components, but also system and processes. You have category 1, 2, and 3. So the order changes from state to state. Someone say that the category 1 is the more safety relevant, other take the 3, but I mean, the logic is the same, okay? When you take the most safety relevant, that are the one that actually can cause a reactor trip, so a shutdown of the reactor thanks to a safety system. Here, human oversight is key, and I mean, the regulator won't accept something that is completely autonomous. On this, we are also working with a couple of companies in the US to have semi-autonomous micromodular reactors, but with a centralized oversight for the whole fleet. So you have still humans, but they are on the upper level, not on the mundane classic task. How we can draw a line more than that? I mean, we are pretty used, to fault tree analysis, RAMS engineering, all this stuff, right? I mean, doing that type of exercise, you can get a quite good idea, because it depends from every system. You're talking about high temperature gas reactor, changes from a PWR or another type of technologies. These are all different. And the thing is that, based on this analysis, you must prove your point to the regulator. It's always like that, and it's like when you are in front of a tribunal. You have to defend yourself and your position against them in the sense that you must demonstrate that this is safe. So there is not just a common line. You can have common criteria and principia, but then everything is checked for everyone. I mean, you cannot have just a general way. In aerospace, I know that also the regulatory is more harmonized, also because I'm also looking on aerospace, application of nuclear on aerospace, let's say. Space, not on planes. I mean, we don't want to have a plane crashing with a nuclear reactor in it. But, the thing is that here is more simpler, because the regulatory is harmonized. Think that for every country in the world, you have a different nuclear regulatory. So it's almost impossible to get a common principia. And also you have the thing about the regulator that I said before. So the answer is, how we can, maybe I can give an idea, because I have no idea, let's say.
Okay, we've almost come to the end of our conversation here. I want to give you an impossible task, perhaps, but a 15-second opportunity. Just in general, we've kind of had the assumption in this entire conversation that it is good for the planet. It's a good idea to build more nuclear. Maybe not everybody agrees with that, but give me your 15-second pitch. Why is it important to accelerate the pace of nuclear energy development?
Wonderful. So nuclear is often a misunderstood technology that have been, at the beginning, has had its origin in a war period, and that's also why sometimes gives a worse opinion on it. The thing is that if we think about AI, the massive energy consumption that we will have in the next years, if we think about the growth in population from developing countries, if we think all these energy hunger that we will have not only in Europe, in the US, I mean in the world, I mean Africa, I mean Southeast Asia, whatever. Renewables, even coupled with batteries, are still not enough. And the only solution for that is to use something that can give baseload power that is not fossil. And the only technology that we have now is nuclear. Now fission, I hope in the future, as soon as possible, fusion. But I mean, we have to make the solution with what we have now. And what we have now, to be solid, to give the answer that we need, is nuclear. There is no other way. Coupled with renewables, but together with nuclear. Otherwise, there is no way. You will not have a stable network. You will not have key critical energy usage covered. You are going to have an unresilient energy infrastructure. And this is also critical for defense application, if you know what I'm talking about. So,
Alessio Iuvara, the founder and CEO of Kalis, thank you so much for joining us on Intelligent Everywhere, and thanks for being at Techtalia. And thanks to all of you for listening. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you.
And thank you for watching the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, whatever it takes to tell the algorithms that you want more Intelligent Everywhere. From AgriPoint, I'm James Kotecki. Let's get out there and enjoy the rest of Techtalia 2025. Thanks, everyone.